Today I'm installing this massive big brake kit on my Porsche 911 and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And I purchased this kit from Keys Motorsports, keysmotorsports.com. I actually emailed them prior to making the purchase. I wanted the best kit for my 911. They recommended this. Not only did they give me the best price, but it also arrived in a couple of days and I had the most amazing customer service experience. So if you want something for your stock or your modified vehicle, keysmotorsports.com. If they don't have it on the website, email them, they'll be able to get it for you. And these are all the tools that are needed for this job. I'm going to link every single one in the description. This is the difference between the old and the new. Obviously a massive two-piece rotor design, a better caliper design, and obviously a red color. Let's do a weight comparison. OEM front is 22 pounds. Aftermarket front is 28 pounds. OEM caliper and pads, 12 pounds. Aftermarket caliper and pads, 13 pounds. I hope you do better in the back. 20 pounds for the stock rotor, 20 pounds for the aftermarket one. 8 pounds for the caliper and pads, and 9 pounds for the aftermarket set. I'm not gonna lie, I did it purely for visual reasons, but the performance upgrade is gonna be amazing. This particular kit comes with these amazing Ferrari DS2500 pads, which I've used in my M3, and they're amazing for daily driving as well as occasional track use. Let's get started with the front, but before we do so, why is my wheel well so clean? Well, I used this product to spray it in the wheel well, then I let it sit, then I agitated with a brush, rinsed it with water, and it came out as good as new. I'm also gonna link this down in the video description. First step is we need to remove the caliper, which is held using these two bolts that are T55. But before we undo them, we need to undo the brake lines, both from here as well as from here. The idea is simple. First, cover this area with towels and rags because you will spill something, and remember, brake fluid is very corrosive. Then take an 11mm brake line wrench and undo the bottom nut. And then when you undo it, you put this cap over the line that comes with the kit to stop any leaking. You can finish it off by hand. Remove it and put the cap over it. Then you grab your set and turn the wheels this way to gain you access to this piece and undo it, but this one is actually a 10mm. When done, simply remove this flexible line from both ends and set it aside. You will not be reusing it. And also move this brake line that's attached to the caliper. Remove this little bracket and set it aside because you will be reusing it. Before we remove the caliper, we're going to get rid of the brake wear sensor, which is this line. We don't need it, so you simply snip it. Remove this rubber, strip the ends, marry them together, reinforce the marriage with the electrical tape, and then bend it as you wish, tape it a little more, and set it aside. Oh yeah, the reason I did is the following. The aftermarket pads do not have a spot for these sensors, which in my mind are useless. All you have to do is visually check the pads to see if they're good. Now, if we didn't do this splicing, if we were to simply disconnect the sensor, we would get a warning message in the dash telling us that the pads are bad, where in fact, they're brand new. We can now remove these two T55s. And now we can simply slide out the caliper, which will come out with the pads. Let's remove the rotor next, which is held using these two screws. Set them aside because you will be reusing them. Then use a mallet to massage them out of the hub. And just like that, they're off. The hub will always be rusty, so you want to make sure you clean it as best as possible so the rotor sits on the new surface as best as possible. To do this, I use these brushes. Again, everything I'm using, I'm going to link in the description. These brushes are amazing, and you can attach it to any handheld drill. Next is we install this caliper bracket using these supplied bolts and washers. But before we install the bolts, we have to put a drop of red Loctite on it. Just one drop is sufficient. Hand tighten it and torque him to 74 foot-pounds using a 19mm socket. And next we install this rotor, but we have to wash it in soapy water first. They will start rusting almost instantly, but it'll go away as soon as you start driving the car. Put the rotor in place and attach them using these OEM screws. And a pro tip, use a drop of NTCs so they're easier to remove next time. One thing I forgot to mention, the bellies of these cutouts should be facing the front of the car. Next is we prep the rotor and remove these two 6mm Allen bolts. Next, we install the rotor and it attaches using these bolts which tighten to 40 foot-pounds. And pay attention, this is the upper side of the rotor with these two nipples. These are the bleed nipples, so they should always be facing up. Hand tighten it and torque it to 40 pound-feet of torque. Next, in the back of the caliper, remove the brake line plug. Then you take your brake line and your washers and your plug and you put a washer on each side. Then hand tighten it, but go reverse first so you don't cross thread anything. So reverse first and then hand tighten it. And torque it to 20 pound-feet, but definitely not more than that. Now grab the rotor and swing it around. Then route it under just the way it was routed before. If you get confused, check out the other side. It'll show you how to route it. But basically position it here, put this bracket under, then grab the second piece of the new brake line. And the idea is this one goes here and this one goes there. And they sort of clip in place. Then you grab this one and you hand tighten it from the bottom. You can actually remove this ABS line to have more room and tighten it using this 11 millimeter. However, there's no way to torque it. You basically tighten it until you cannot tighten it anymore. And repeat the same thing on this side, except you want to remove the plug. And I'll take a clean towel and my spray and spray these areas and remove any potential pieces of contamination. It is pads time. Swivel it so you can access it a little better. The idea is to slide the pads in, but before you do it, you've got to put some schmear in the back to prevent any squeaking. And I also like to do it here at the corner where it slides. Slide it in, but make sure you hold it because you're going to put this supplied pin in the back, which you will then hammer in. Let's do the same thing on the other pad. Slide it in place, and then hammer the pins in. And the last step is to put these anti-rattle brackets, and as Brian mentioned in his video, I'm gonna link it right above, this is probably the hardest part of this install because not only is it springy, but you have to put this guy in as well as these spacers. And putting these spacers in is quite difficult. You basically slide it in, repeat the same thing at the bottom, and tighten it to 11 pound-feet. The last step is you grab some brake cleaner, spray it on the actual surface. With the front being done, we can move to the back. And the idea here is very similar. Remove the caliper, you've got these two bolts, clip the brake sensor, remove the brake line, then remove the whole assembly, install the new kit, and you're done. First order of business is clipping this brake wear sensor. I actually lied. You have to remove this anyways. See, we can actually put it aside. And then you have to wiggle this sensor here out of the bracket because we will be completely removing this bracket. So now that it's wiggled out, we're gonna plug it back in. We're gonna loop it to the back. I taped it up here so it's out of the way. Let's again disconnect this brake line using this 11 mil. Set this aside like that. We're gonna remove the calipers by undoing these two T55 bolts. And we should be able to slide out the caliper. Let's take a quick commercial break. Keys Motorsports also provided this quick jack. Not only do they sell aftermarket and OEM parts, but they also sell these amazing devices to make your life a little easier. Oh, and by the way, the parking brake should be disengaged for this job. Time to clean the hub. Next, we install the caliper bracket, but the heat shield needs to be trimmed just a tiny bit. And to do so, you can use regular aluminum shears. 1 drop of Loctite. Install the bracket, then grab a 19 millimeter socket, hand tighten it, and torque it to 74 pound-feet. The rotor's going next, but you know what we have to do first. Nice and wet. Let's put it on the hub, and just like in the front, use a drop of anti-seize. Next, you prep the caliper by removing these 6 mils. Then you take your caliper with the nipples pointing up, attach it using the supplied bolt, and torque it to 40 pound-feet. Next, let's remove the plug from the back of the caliper. It's going to be very hard to see. That's the best angle I can get. Again, prep your brake line by putting a washer on this. And check this out. The line sort of loops like this. So you want to go from the back, then put the washer here, thread it into the caliper. You can hand tighten it. Before you tighten it, let's put it in here. And you've got these little grooves, so it's easy for you to slide it in place. Let's tighten this line to 20 foot-pounds. And now let's reattach the brake line. First, let's take the cap off, push everything back in place. You can hand tighten everything first, and then tighten it using the 11 mil. Let's clean the area. Time to put the pads in. And just like in the front, slide it in, and then use the pin to hold it in place. Slide this one in, push the pins all the way, and hammer them in. And last but not least is our favorite bracket. And tighten them to 11 pound-feet. Oh yeah. Oh boy, I almost forgot. All right, and we are done installing the actual brake kit. We still have to bleed the brakes. I'm gonna do it in a second. I am also going to ceramic coat the calipers. I'm gonna show you which product I use down below, but I'm not gonna bore you on video because it's a very easy process. But check this out. This is what it looks like, and I've gotta say, it looks super, super cool. This is what they look like in the front, and this is what they look like in the back. When it comes to the actual brake flush, I actually did a video on my Cayman, and you can see it right above, so I'm gonna do this fairly quickly. I'm gonna use a pressure bleeder. The first thing I need to do is I need to evacuate as much fluid out of this reservoir as possible, and I've got this cool method. Check this out, this is already how much I evacuated. You put a bottle in there with the little snorkel, you squeeze the bottle, you squeeze it, and then there's a hole up top, so you plug the hole with your finger, and as the bottle unsqueezes, it sucks the fluid out. You then grab your pressure bleeder, attach it to the reservoir, tighten it, and pump it up to 15 psi. Obviously it needs to be filled up with your favorite brake fluid. Lock it in place. Now, if the pressure drops for whatever reason, this could indicate that you have a leak. So this is a good time to double check all your fittings to make sure you tighten everything correctly. We're gonna start bleeding from the caliper that's farthest away from the master cylinder, and it's this one. And we're gonna start with the outside nipple, followed by the inner nipple. Oh, you hear all the bubbles? We then repeat the same process on this side. And as it's bleeding on the other side, technically we can put this wheel back on, but two things we need to do. We're gonna put this, I think it's a 2 or 3 mil spacer, and let's put the wheel back on, but this wheel is very heavy and the caliper is so big and the caliper is so new that I don't want to scratch it. So, two things we're going to do. We're going to put this wheel guide in place, and we're going to put a towel over the caliper. I know it's an overkill, but I don't want to scratch it, at least not today. So, let's hang it on the hanger. Okay. Ooh. Gonna remove the guide as well as the towel. Right front is next. The bleeding is done, let's put the tires on. Let's see what this looks like when we drop the car onto the ground. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1 o'clock in the morning. I am ready to go to bed, but we've got to drop it. You ready? Oh, geez. Holy smokes. Oh my God, this looks so good. Look how nicely it filled the wheel well. Holy crap-a-noli. Holy moly. So I got the looks here, and I got the looks there. Oh man, that looks so good. Okay, it's the next day. I pull up the car in front of the house. That's the only extent of driving that I did. I also pumped the brakes when I first started it. As you start the car, you pump it, the foot's gonna go to the floor. Eventually it's gonna get harder and harder, and you get your normal brake feel back. So yeah, I'm super excited. The pedal feels solid, especially when I pump it up. Oh, this just came in. Since my calipers are massive, the gap between the actual caliper and the wheel is so tight that I need a new wheel brush. So this thin one can squeeze in between the caliper and the wheel well, or the actual wheel. And look, oh wow, it bends. Huh, look at this. So what we're gonna do now is, we're going to bed the brake pads in. And what that means is driving to about 60 miles an hour, and then making a couple of stops, not to 0, to about, let's say 10 or 15, and doing that a couple of times to bed the brake pads onto the rotors. All right, 63, 70, brake, oh my gosh, to 20. Woo! Ha! It's funny, at first there was no bite, and eventually you got more and more bite, and then my face started pushing forward. Let's try this again. 70. Oh my gosh, these brakes! Holy moly, wow! Oh my god, they're so strong. And that was just my second hard bedding in. Bedding in? Holy schmuck! Holy schmuck! This is a family show. Oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, these brakes are absolutely phenomenal. Actually, the brakes are so good that in the softest setting, the car, I feel like, leans so much forward. Yep. Oh my God. Wow. Jeez. I'm making myself nauseous. Anyways, I hope this video was somewhat helpful. If this is something that you want to tackle yourself, guess what? This installation works on many other makes and models, not just a Porsche. Actually, if you watch Brian's video, he did it on a F80 M3, and the install was the same. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll answer every single question. This is one of the most, well, actually, this is one of my favorite mods right now, I'm telling you. It just, not only does it make the car feel good, but also makes it look even cooler. So, on that note, thank you very much. Once again, huge thanks and shout out to Keys Motorsports, and we'll see you in the next video. Well, let's check out the brake dust though. So yeah, this is gonna be kind of hard to pick up. It's really sunny outside, but these wheels were completely washed. So this is the brake dust. Again, this is what you get when you bed in these new brakes. But look, you can see the rotor. Nice and clean now, almost zero rust. You can see the lines from the pads. Again, we're gonna do a couple of these sessions. I'm definitely gonna go hard on these. Oh, it smells like the track. It smells so good. So that's the front, and this is what the back looks like. Oh wait, the tip is not pointing to the valve stem. Uh-oh, the Porsche gods will hate me. Anyway, see, look, it's starting to look the part. The more I drive it, the more it'll bed in. But yeah, super happy with this.